Hey guys, Wild Ox Studios here, and I'm gonna be taking you through the steps of implementing enhanced input system on the Couch Co-op local multiplayer template. Um, these changes have been done and committed to Epic, so UE5.1 will now use the enhanced input system once the update is approved, but a few people really wanted me to record a video going over implementation for their current project, so I figure I'll do that. Um, so couch co-op local multiplayer template, and we'll just do underscore enhanced input. Because I already have a project where I implemented this and committed to Epic, so it it's pretty straightforward. I mean, a lot of it is just working within the confines of how the new enhanced input system subsystem works. Let me see if this is going to take a while to compile shaders. I'm going to pause and then just pick back up once it starts. Doesn't look like it's going to take that long though. And so first thing you'll notice is we get this upgrading default player input class notification, and by default the plugin is enabled, so we don't have to worry with that too much. If you hit play right now, player 1's going to work, but the rest of the players are going to give you an error. But the first thing we want to do is create a new folder for the new input mapping context. So I'm just going to call this input, and then I'm going to go make the actual mapping context. So alright, so this is where your mappings are going to go. It's a really good idea to open up your project settings and go to your input and take a look at your mappings. Axis mappings are going to be handled a little differently. We'll do that with likely a swivel, and then we'll have to make action mappings as well. So I'm just going to stash this over here for now, and this over here for now, and then you right click here and we go to new input action, and I'm going to name these IA underscore, and I'm going to do move, and move is going to be for the movement like WDS and the gamepad, and you want to make it a axis 2D vector, and we can just save that like that. Now we're going to need jump, start, sprint, those kind of things. So it's easier to go ahead and just make one for this, and it's going to be a digital bool. And the cool thing is once you have one made that's a digital bool, we can just duplicate that. So we'll need one for interact, we'll need one for sprint, let me see, I think we're gonna need one for menu left and right. Yeah, those are just Boolean values. We can duplicate. for leave game. Let's go back and look. Attack, start. Okay. And you can just go file, save all to get all those saved. Now this is where the mappings come in. Go ahead and add one, and we'll just do the move for right now. And you can click this key and do like W. And I'm just gonna do it again. A, S, D, and then we'll need one for the gamepad, which I have to turn the gamepad on, and then give it the axis value. Now we're probably going to need to change this axis value to a 2D vector or 2D axis. So I'm going to have to go find that manually because the hitting it, didn't pull it up correctly. And then because of the way this swivel is going to work, we're going to need a scalar modifier, and this should be fine. Default settings should be fine, and we are going to also need a dead zone. Let me check out these settings. That should be fine. Alright, now for the W, we're going to need to define a swivel input axis, or swizzle, I think is what it's called. And then on the rest of the subsequent values, so for A, we're going to need a negate modifier. And then for S, we're going to need swizzle again. And then we're going to need the negate on it as well. And then for D, we are going to need nothing. Yeah, we're going to need nothing. And then I think all of that should be good. I'm going to save that and look back at my move. I think that is good. Now there is I think all of that is fine. There usually is a place, I can't remember where it is, where it defines the axis order, but I don't think we're gonna have to actually worry about that right now. Alright, so we have all of that set up. that means all of these can go bye-bye, right? Because we don't want there to be any confusion on the axis mappings. And then in the mapping context, we can minimize all this now, and then we'll make a new mapping for attack, and we'll make this the left mouse button, and then we'll also need one for the face button. Didn't mean to do that. We need another one. And so jump, space, and we'll need the face button bottom, and then this thing here sometimes gets confusing. We'll need start, I think this is just enter for the keyboard, and then the start button on the gamepad, and then we'll need a leave game, and I think this was tab, and this will be the select button, and then we'll need a menu left. It's left on the directional pad, A, and then menu right, right on the directional pad, and D. Start, looks like we're still missing sprint, and we'll need sprint, and this will be shift, and then I had it as click in on the thumbstick, and I think we should be good here. Alright, now two things are going to happen. The character blueprint obviously is going to throw a fit because the action mappings are no longer available. So if we come here and we hit compile, you'll see all of these action mappings are going to throw a fit on you. It should actually be throwing a fit about these two, but start, sprint, menu left, leave game, attack, interact, all this looks good. So we'll go ahead and clean these up too, since they're no longer going to be needed. Hence this is deprecated. And then when we compile, we're gonna get a bunch more, right? So now we'll go through each one of these and we'll replace them with the appropriate enhanced input action. So if I type in interact, you'll see this action event here, not the value, but the event. And then anywhere you see pressed, that's actually started. So triggered is more like a tick. So every time, like if you held this down, it would fire multiple times, and sometimes like you get unwanted behavior because like however long you hold this down, it could be multiple fires. So we want to use started for this specific use case. So as you compile, you'll see these errors start to clean up as you replace the input action. So if we type jump, same thing here. We have pressed and release, so it's going to be started and completed. Don't need that anymore. We're not actually using mouse input, so this can just go away. We don't need it. We are also not using this turn rate and lookup rate on the gamepad input, so this can just go away. We don't have reset VR in this implementation, so that can go away. And then we'll just look up sprint. Same thing, we need the started. Just clean this up for now. And this is going to be the move stuff. Let's see how I'm going to do this. I wonder if I can. Expand this up a little bit, and I'm gonna actually move jump. Figured that was gonna happen. So because I need that room to the left, so we're gonna move jump over here, and I'm gonna just pull this comment box out, and these direction modifiers are pretty useful, so I'm gonna keep them there. We'll recompile, and then I'll just get the move. So that, again, not the values, the actual event. All right, so same thing here. We only want to do this. Actually, this is an axis, so we will want to do this on triggered, and then you're going to want to split this pin. I'm almost for certain Y is going to go here. We'll be able to test that in a second. Get rid of this, and then you'll duplicate this call, and then the same thing, we will want the tick here, and then X will be here. And then we need to replace attack, so same thing. Again, the event. We need the pressed, so it's rephrase to started. And we can clean this up a little bit so it's not right on top of each other. And then the leave game. So this is the back button, basically. Event, and because it's a pressed, we want started. Okay. So the character, the third person character class is now happy. And now because we're using the game mode to feed these input detectors, you would think, oh, if I go look at Epic's tutorials, I need to implement this mapping context inside of one of my controller blueprints. Well, the input detector is just a pawn that's handling the controller stuff. But if you go to the game mode base, which is the Gauss co-op game mode, you'll see like this is where we're handling the spawn detectors and then piping in the local player the controller creation. Now, this is where things get a little tricky and different because enhanced input doesn't work like the old system. In the editor preferences, actually not in editor preferences, it's in the editor settings, project settings. So you have this little skip player start bool that was tied to the old input system. It doesn't do anything anymore. I don't know if this is a bug, they didn't tie it in correctly. It's broken. So unfortunately, if you want to test, you can't skip the gamepad anymore with UE5.1. It just doesn't do anything. So for the best experience with, just understanding what's going on, I would recommend unticking this. It doesn't really matter for this. I just wanted to make note that this doesn't do anything. So we'll close out of this, and then because we're creating these local player controllers right here, used to, it would automatically increment on a -1 value, create the controller, and then you could pipe that into whatever actor you were spawning. this doesn't function this way anymore either due to the new system. So, and then on top of that, you won't have the mapped context bound to anything. And since we're not doing this in a traditional fashion, like we don't just have a player controller somewhere, we're piping it into the input detector to listen for events. There's a little bit of extra stuff we have to do here. So the recommended thing is going to be use this index value, because you're already looping through each player start, and then piping it in here. But we're going to handle this a little differently, because the engine itself already creates the local player 0 for you. The only thing it doesn't do is set up the mapped context. So I'll go over that real quick to kind of help you understand what that means. So we'll go ahead and do this step, right? So we're going to make the one-to-one correlation between the player start index that we're looking for and the local player controller that we're going to create. So that's going to get around the first set of issues that you're facing. The next thing that we want to do, and we want to do it here, we don't want to deal with the whole like needing a delay and, you know, getting the controller from the pawn, because the pawn is spawned like way later. We're going to get this index value again. So we'll just do it here. So we know what the index value is, and we're going to say if this index is greater than 0, because again, the engine itself in its source code is already creating a local controller for player index 0. And we're going to say, okay, well, if this is the case, then after we create that controller, we're going to now get the enhanced input local player subsystem. And we're only going to do this for players that are not player 1. And then we're going to add the mapping context that we just set up to the created controller at this level, so that no matter where we go, the context exists for the controller, right? Because that's what it is. This isn't really something for the pawn. This is for your controller mapping. Whatever your pawn you possess, the controller will then have that context attached to it. So if this is true, we're gonna go ahead and select our mapped context. And then if this is false, and let me do this just so we can specify what this actually means. So we are not player 1. This is a generated controller based on the index value. And then once we get done with this, let me do this, because I want this. Tell you what, let me undo that, and I want to grab this comment too. So we're gonna scoot this down. So after we do that, then we're going to spawn the input detector. And then if we're not player 1, we still need to do this step. We still need to add the mapping context to the engine created player 0. And then we still want to spawn the detector. But right here, what we're going to do is get player controller. Right? And what this does is it allows us to not have to do the whole like, oh, I'm inside of my character now, let me get the controller that's controlling me and then cast to it and then deal with this whole like time delay issue. This should always be reliable. Let me see, and we are player 1, so player controller index 0 is always the local player 1 controller. So that should now set up the context, and your third person character should now be happy. But remember, we're calling these input detectors, right? So same thing here. If I hit compile, the start button isn't going to function until we move that over to the enhance input system. So we'll move this to the pressed. And then for the menu right, the same thing. Started. Think I did start it there, yeah. And then menu left. And let me clean this up a tad. All right. We should now compile without any issues. And the input detector will actually recognize these events too. Again, it's just a pawn that is piping the controller into it, and then once it detects input from the start button, it spawns the player logic. So now at this point we should be able to test, and if I hit enter, you can see that I get the player 1. I can check, I can pick my color, hit enter, and all of my input events work. Jump and sprint. And then if I come over here and I hit, I didn't set up F to interact, did I? Let's go back over here and look that up. Yeah, I don't think I have interact at all, so we need to do that. So interact is going to be the top gamepad button. Let me turn my controller back on. I want it to be F, and then we will make another input, and it's going to be the top gamepad button. So yeah, now if we come over here, zip lines work, and then if I pick up the controller, which I have in my hand now, controller input works, jump works, sprint works. I was hitting the attack button, which is the X button. So interactions, unlock the door, all this stuff. So yeah, now I'm gonna enable the second controller, hit start, and we now have input for the second controller. So again, I've updated the project and have committed the updated push for enhanced input to Epic. So the project will use enhance input from 5.1 going forward. Until next time, guys, thanks to all my Patreon members, thanks to all the marketplace supporters. Yeah, you guys have a great weekend. Later.